Welcome everybody. In this episode of the SAMM Core Podcast, we were thinking about zooming a bit more into AI and what's the impacts of AI on software development, and in particular, how does it link to SAMM? I assume we can be sure that most organizations are looking into AI to maybe first try to understand how they can leverage it, experimenting a bit with it. We see on the markets that many organizations are actually building AI-powered applications already today. And so the topic or the question that we want to address today is how can SAMM help or be instrumental in this software development using AI? And so indeed, we've prepared a couple of questions, and we have two people of our core team, being Sebastian, Seba, and Nariman, who were so kind to volunteer to shed some light on some of the questions that we have prepared for this podcast. So, Seba, Nariman, do you want to introduce yourself? Quick words, or before we dive into it?
Nariman, you first.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Bart, Seba. Yeah, I'm Nariman Agatagiv. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm about 8 years in application security, product security domain. And since last year, I joined SAMM Core Team because I was using SAMM extensively in my organization where I used to work, and was bringing back lots of feedbacks and experiences, getting questions, asking questions. And at some point, started to spend so much time with the core team that they decided to invite me. And thanks for inviting today for this session, and I'll be happy to contribute.
Thanks, Nariman. So my name is Seba, which is short for Sebastian de Leersnijder. I'm based in Belgium, CTO of a company called Torion. Personally, I've always been heavily interested in AI. Even did my master thesis a long time ago on neural networks, and I've been following up on AI ever since. I've definitely some interest in this. Obviously, besides that, I'm one of the co-project leads of the SAMM project.
So thank you guys. Thank you for joining. And Seba, it happens that I also recently saw your keynote on AI and SAMM. Could you maybe introduce us a bit into the AI topic? I think you're very well placed to give a bit of an insight into, okay, what do we understand on AI, and what are different dimensions that we should look into before we delve into the topics around SAMM in particular.
Okay, so I'm going to be very short because we can probably talk about AI for a couple of days or months, but it's so in general, an AI or AI development and usage boils down to using a system that can be trained to do a certain task, compared with regular software where you have a developer writing code and defining that logic with code. So that's, I would say, very simplistic, definition or how AI works. And it's interesting, and it's definitely important to understand how AI is somewhat different than regular software, because with SAMM, it stands for Software Assurance Maturity Model. An AI model is somewhat different in a way that it's going to be trained with a lot of data, obviously, and examples. And a model can be fine-tuned, a model can be used and deployed as part of a system. And then obviously it will work as software, right? In essence, I'm not convinced that AI is not software. AI for me is also software. It's some kind of functionality, but it's just the way you create or train or model your AI is just has a little bit of a different life cycle. and also has some very specific risk profiles that are different from, I would say, the classical code that we normally have. And just as one example, all the ethics around the usage of AI and models that automatically come up with certain answers where you can ask yourself, okay, based on what kind of data do you come to these kind of results? Was there some bias in that data that would lead to different or outcomes that would not be positive for the people where that would be impacted by the usage of that model, as an example, which is sometimes something that you would not or typically not have with regular software, just as an example. So so the risk profile can be quite different, and you have a lot more ethical and even also regulatory impact around the use of AI versus classical software.
Yeah, right. So I understand. Indeed, AI based software, it's software, but there's some very specificalities to it which make it still different than regular software. That brings us to the first question that we wanted to address, because right now, today, if you look at the SAMM model, AI is not very explicit in the SAMM model today. So the question that we wanted to look into is, can we use, is SAMM today, is it ready? Can it be used today to reason about AI-based systems? Is it applicable? How can we use it? Can you shed some light on this? Seba, can you maybe start?
Or maybe Nariman, if Nariman wants to.
Nariman, also fine. Yeah.
Sure, I can try that. So I agree with Seba that AI is a software, and to develop secure software, you have secure software development lifecycle, right? The path from governance design to production, you have implementation, operation. But in AI world, a lot of that, or most of activities heavily done at design time, and a lot of the stuff need to be done at governance time. So SAMM model covers every step of development lifecycle from governance, design, implementation, build. But AI is so specialized and it has so much coverage and things you have to do at design time, like Seba said, you have ethics against biases. All of them technically are covered by SAMM. So we have this policy and standards activity, we have software requirements activity, compliance management activity. So if you ask yourself, does SAMM cover all of those requirements that you also should be doing for AI to prevent, let's say, data leakage and data poisoning in AI? Yes, SAMM covers that, but at very high level. So in my view, SAMM can help you to protect AI application software, but it gives you a starting point, maybe some structure baseline to organize your life cycle, but then you will need to go to very specific frameworks to find right controls to make sure that each of that SAMM activity is actually done right. And just to give example with maybe DevOps, yes, SAMM has secure build activity. It says you should be building in a secure way and the deployment should be secure, but we don't claim that SAMM is enough to do it secure. So you can go to DSOM with more details, and SAMM activity guideline on a secure build references and suggest you to go to DSOM. So for me, SAMM is always the starting point. So whatever I do, even AI, but then SAMM sends you where you should be going in certain conditions to dedicated frameworks.
Yeah,
All right.
no,
All right.
Totally agree. And I just wanted to follow up. It's in essence, SAMM is technology agnostic and development paradigm agnostic. So I would say most of the activities and security practices you have in a SAMM framework that you would measure in your own secure development lifecycle you would probably be able to map on AI, I would say, development or deployment. But we have to be careful there is that if you look in detail at SAMM, is that the language and the wording there assumes more classical software. So sometimes you have to make that translation. Okay, what does this mean in an AI context? But when you look at the practices in there, having good governance in place, doing good threat modeling, doing testing, having incident response are all activities that you would also need for an AI system. And also don't forget that in most of the cases, your AI or your model is not operating as one component. It is part of a full ecosystem of a lot of in the software, I would say, environment where classical or the traditional application security is still very much required. So it's in that sense, a model in itself will probably not do a lot if you cannot connect it to the rest of your systems and software.
All right. Thanks very much for explaining that. So I do understand that in general SAMM is very applicable to AI-based software. There might be some particular things that are showing up during the activities that we're looking into, but overall we should be able to use SAMM quite well for AI-based software. That's what I take from this discussion. Pat, can you take us to the next question? So as I already mentioned before, well, AI is not very explicit in the model. Actually, it's not explicit at all in the current model. So we're not describing in the model how we should interpret an activity like threat modeling or compliance management or testing or what have you in the context of AI. Do you see any opportunities for improving the model of SAMM in providing better support for secure AI-based software? And if so, what would be your top 3 picks where we could improve the model for that purpose? Let's maybe start this question with Seba. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think we have basically 2 choices here. So either and I think it's always a good thing to review the current core model, the security practices in there, the wording and the language in a way that we'd want to make sure that it covers the regular software, a regular, I would say, code-based software, but that it would also cater for AI and generative AI more specifically. But and this is something we obviously need to debate and also have input from the community from, where we have seen in the past that there was specific guidance, like for example, the guidance for agile software development. I think it would be worthwhile to complement the current model with specific Gen AI or broader AI guidance to see, okay, how do you apply the current model? Where are specific attention points, specifically around the governance, specifically around how to do data management, because it involves lots of data management, how to cover prompt injection, because that is, while we know prompt injection is currently still a big problem with generative AI or large language models. It's something that has not been solved yet, so we need to at least address it. And that is something that's quite specific to an LLM, where if you look at some, you will not see a very specific call out for SQL injection. because that's one of
Yeah.
the many vulnerabilities that we see with regular code. But I think for Gen AI, it would make sense. And also add more pointers to other OWASP and non-OWASP resources related to Gen AI. You have the Gen AI project within OWASP with the top 10, but also other guidances. You have the OWASP AI Exchange. There's so lots of very good, I would say, guidance from NIST and MITRE with respect to AI development and vulnerabilities and or risks in general. So I would say adding resources, adding specific guidance, and I would say reviewing certainly the language, and maybe reviewing, do we need or do we keep the current structure, or is there a need for one or more extra security practices specific for AI? I don't have the answer yet, but also we need to make sure that SAMM stays restricted to the development lifecycle. If you look at OWASP SAMM in an overall ISMS, Information Security Management System, we cover specifically development lifecycle of software or AI. And so anything that's outside that, infrastructure, the whole governance around information security or cybersecurity at large, is a very broad model. So we should not try to cover everything either as well. So that's how I see that.
All right. Maybe picking up on something that you mentioned, we should maybe think about, do we need extra security practices there? One thing that's already came up before in the discussion was model training, for instance. It's something, training the AI model. It's something that's currently totally not represented. Nariman, would you think that something like model training would make sense, or an activity around model training would make sense in a SAMM model? Or do you maybe see other opportunities for security practices where you say, okay, we might need to think about this or this or that, because currently it's totally not covered in the model? Do you have any thoughts on this from your end?
I see model training and management of model, of its, I say, confidentiality and integrity. That is like a really detailed threat modeling activity, right, at the design time. So all this model data defines how application will run further. There's everything. So implementation for me is actually when AI is running, so that actual app. But there is lots of preparatory work, which is all of it is kind of design time. But the design time activity for AI software is so rich that we are too broad at the moment there for these activities. So it might make sense to pull out and make separate activity or stream saying and collecting together all stuff, how to treat the data that influences the runtime in the future during the runtime. But it's also not essential. So I need to step back and see like what actually the purpose of SAMM right here. Lots of people focus on assessment or application control frameworks to identify for one given point of time what are the risks, what are the controls at the moment, how we mitigate those risks, what your maturity score for that moment. And it's not only our SAMM that doing that, you have NIST, SSDF frameworks, etc. But they focus on measuring where you are. And they help you sometimes to define where you want to be, right? And help you do prioritization based on risks. But then those consultants who do risk assessment, they give a roadmap, leave, but the journey to go from A to B, that's the challenging part. And one of the biggest assets that SAMM also offers you is the guidance, that explanation how to get from A to B, right? All this journey. So it's about journey. It's not about examining where you are right now and not only about the score. So my question would be, does SAMM help you today with the journey? So you want to make secure AI app. When I look at SAMM as a skeleton of application security program, does it give enough references to other places for my use case when I'm doing AI or any other technology? So if I look today, it doesn't, because there are some new developments, new frameworks, and AI Top 10 and other AI maturity model, AI WASP AI Exchange. We did not update the model by saying, hey, by the way, if you want to decide on your policies and requirements, you definitely should check OWASP AI Exchange project. But because it's so new, it's happened this year, we didn't catch up yet with those. But if we do add all of those new topics, I think it will be enough of a tool and as a reference, let's say, library to help with the journey. And my criteria is, can it help for anyone who develops AI with a journey to get from one place to another? And does it have all the starting point references? So I don't think the priority is to add extra categories. Today's existing categories cover everything almost. We just need to make sure that they are relevant with today's new developments in the world.
All right. That's very clear. So I hear from both you and Seba that right now we should be working on providing more information, more guidance, rather than maybe changing the structure of the model to cater for new activities that we would need. But definitely a topic that will need further study and discussion, I would expect. All right, perfect. Then I would like to touch upon one last question. So Pat, if you could change slides. Yes, and the last question is looking at one particular usage of AI that's more in particular generative AI to do generation of code. So rather than building AI-based systems, this is more about using generative AI by developers to prepare the code or to write the code for them. And that's a different type of use of AI than what we've discussed so far, where we were more touching upon AI-powered systems, I would say. This is more about using generative AI to generate the code. Do you see any differences in this use case scenario compared to what we have been discussing before in relation to SAMM? And I don't know, Nariman or Seba, if someone wants to take this question.
Nariman, do you want to go first?
Okay, I can try that. So we're talking about AI-generated code and how to make sure that one is secure and how some activities help that, right?
Yeah.
As you write code, context is very important. We have different contexts. We have a business context, like legislative, maybe sustainability context. You have maybe like technological context. As you develop code, you continuously evaluate those contexts and you take the best decision at that moment. You do threat modeling as a developer with your team members. But when you start to use AI, and it's very tempting to accelerate, of course, AI that generates a bunch of code, pages of code at that moment, AI wouldn't know your specific context, your requirements, your industry that much yet. So it is likely that some things will be missing, which you normally would do based on your own context and the physical situation at your organization. So it's a threat that those vulnerabilities, those problems can occur. And it's also likely that non-technical people start to generate a lot of code that normally they would not be capable of writing. And the maturity that you achieved by doing some assessments and roadmaps, they're under risk that they'll be inflated. That maybe you think that you have very mature threat modeling program in organization, and based on some assessment, you think you did well, it's all good. But when you still have same 100 developers, but suddenly you developed 10 times more software, most likely all those assessments you did then don't represent the reality anymore. That threat modeling maturity is not there anymore. Maybe all these risk assessments, risk profiles, they might not work anymore. So I would say if you start to accelerate generation, you need to be a bit more critical of yourself and maybe redo all assessments and rethink how we all on the criteria a bit, what it means to develop a new code.
All right. Thanks, Nariman. Seba, anything you wanted to add? You want to add in this context?
Yeah, definitely. So again, this is a very broad topic. I think overall, it's something that's happening. A lot of developers and organizations are using Cloud Code, Codex, Copilot. So there's a lot of value in using those tools, especially if you organize it and you put it in the hands of experienced software engineers. In terms of generating boilerplate code, migrating code bases, documenting code, because if there's something that developers hate, and I was one myself, it's documenting your code. These are things where AI agents or code supporting agents are very good at. So it will overall accelerate and make development of functionality and software more efficient. But with that, also there's the risk of a lot of people that are not handling that power in a way that they understand what's happening. Like what Nariman already hinted on, if you're not really used to how software is working and how you can review what comes out of it and how you can interpret it and make sure that it's actually a valid and good working code, then you can get in trouble and very fast, because you have to understand that these LLMs are trained on a lot of public repositories contain also a lot of vulnerabilities. So the chances are high that the generated code also contains vulnerabilities. So you have to realize that. And on top of that, we haven't touched upon it yet, but I've already seen quite a lot or encountered organizations where the developers were even not allowed to use LLMs to generate code because of potential IP conflicts. So it's if you talk to your legal team and you say, okay, would it be a good idea to build and sell a system that is generated by ChatGPT or Claude, where there is still lawsuits going on in a way that the source code there or the source of those LLMs is debatable, then you can very quickly run into potential IP conflicts. So I would say definitely there, make sure that you're very clear where your code comes from. So just touching upon that. And then yes, I think given if you give this to people that are that know about software engineering, it will definitely go well, and we will have lots of AI generated code in a responsible way. But like with anything, it opens it. It's like the ideal no code or low code environment, and you have lots of people that are entering. I would say the overall market of quote unquote developers and are generating systems with lots of vulnerabilities in them. But I think over time that will sort itself out.
Yeah. So key takeaways that I heard in this discussion is, first of all, if we're using generated code, we have to make sure that the maturity of all of our practices is high enough to be able to cope with potential risks that were potentially introduced in the code that was generated. And second of all, definitely also looking into potential risks around IP and others, because these are new dimensions that we might have not really thought through, and that might have really be an impact of what we bring on the market in this way. All right, thanks a lot, gentlemen, for sharing your insights. I suggest that we round off here the podcast. Thanks for insights. Pretty clear that there's still a lot of debate and discussions to be done to see how we can improve SAMM to better support AI based systems. And it was very thanks a lot for your insights already in this topic. And I'm pretty sure that in the coming time we will see some more around how SAMM can be used or improved for AI based systems. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.